What's up, you guys, and welcome back to Cryptographics. And today we're going to be diving in deep to DRAGONX, TitanX, and all sorts of crazy deep stuff that you aren't going to want to miss with the founder himself, Erik. Erik, welcome, man. It's great to have you on the channel. I'm excited for this conversation.
Same here, man. Really glad to be here.
Yeah, right on. Well, I know that there's been a lot of people talking about we're at lows and TitanX isn't doing so well right now, and DragonX is like, I've seen people talk about like DragonX is hurting TitanX, which is interesting. I won't say my thoughts yet, but before we get into that, because I want to lead with that. Once we get into, okay, well, Erik, how'd you get here in your position that you're sitting in right now, and why did you create DRAGONX first before we go deep?
Yeah, sure. So I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but basically, I've known Jake for probably over a year at this point. Yeah, certainly over a year at this point. We were originally talking before he had actually launched TitanX, and when he was just booting up his mastermind. And so I got to know him a little bit, and I ended up joining his mastermind. And that's actually how I got to basically be in early on TitanX and understand kind of where it was going to be going. And I've been building cryptocurrencies, other cryptocurrencies as well. So I kind of had the background and knowledge of understanding TitanX and also being able to build on it in the future. So when the kind of build on TitanX clarion call was sent out by Jake, I was in a really good position to capitalize on that because I had a great team. We were working on other things, and we were able to move really fast to get DRAGONX to market.
That's cool. I didn't know you were. So, I mean, you don't have to disclose, but you're in. So how long were you building and designing for prior to being, connected with Jake and all that?
Yeah, I would say probably 9 months. Yeah,
9
I
months.
was
Okay.
building cryptos. I've been pretty early. I'm pretty new to also just building cryptocurrencies. Like, it's also something that's new to me, but I'm lucky to have a great team, and I've been in crypto quite a long time. Like, I would say, I mean, I bought my first Ethereum when it came out in 2015.
Nice.
I've been following along in some degree or another, and I got really serious in like about 2020, when kind of Hex launched and the whole DeFi summer happened. So I've been around for a while.
That's cool. That's really cool. And so you've basically had enough experience and confidence in yourself to design something that's now a multi-million-dollar asset. And I mean, it's pretty cool. The one thing I want to ask now is like, well, how did the idea come up? Because it's simple in nature. It's in terms of its overarching theme of what it's going to do. Obviously, the code's a whole different beast, I'm sure. But how did that come up? Was that like, did you take notes from the Maximus book, or was it something different? Because it is similar to Maximus, but it's obviously its own different beast. It has its own different mechanics, its own different purpose, and its own engine, essentially, that none of the Maximus ecosystem tokens really have or bring to Hex per se. So yeah, how did that come up?
Yeah, it's a great point, actually. I didn't actually look at Maximus, although I was aware of the project. It wasn't actually the inspiration for this, although I do remember having the thought that, oh, this is actually kind of it kind of rhymes with what happened with Maximus and that whole set of tokens. And but I would say that this actually came from me understanding the TitanX protocol at a pretty deep level, and basically looking for points of leverage where it would be most powerful to build a token. And as I was saying in the Telegram chat, like, I think that what we have with DRAGONX is really just the optimal token you could build on top of TitanX, because we're leveraging that engine, like you said, of staking rewards, and that's such a powerful lever. You could have similar mechanics with other parts of the application, other parts of TitanX, but nothing really gives you the bang that staking rewards give you. And so I think I was just able to recognize that as the fundamental like driver of the token. And I had actually originally envisioned it as being a little bit more like Maxi, although it wasn't a direct inspiration. I had originally envisioned it to be a closed system where the rewards would not recompound, and that the dividends would basically be paid out, the staking rewards would be paid out to buy and burn. And at some point, I had been thinking about the concept long enough that I arrived at the idea of expanding it to be this compounding software that it is today. Some of this comes from me being in Hex, because I was a pretty early in Hex. I wasn't like a day one guy, but I was pretty early, and I was able to kind of see the drawbacks and benefits to staking, and I could see those playing out in TitanX as well. So having the experience of Hex and seeing how staking works, seeing the drawbacks, seeing the benefits, it's probably another reason why I kind of gravitated towards the staking part of the protocol, which led me to DRAGONX.
Right. Yeah. It's cool how, like, when you start with an idea, it's who is it that told me this? I actually no, I'm not going to say that on the stream. That's going to sound way too wrong, and it's going to take it the wrong way. So out of context. So, but basically, it's interesting how you can have something that's like bare bones. It's so good, and then the more you think about it, the more it's just it becomes this thing that you originally never thought it could become, because obviously you're not thinking about it in the total perspective that you could. But it's just funny where things go, and arriving at something where you've created like a perpetual flywheel or perpetual engine self-powering is pretty cool. So with DRAGONX, though, there's obviously it has the same need for ETH as TitanX. So, and this is something I've been thinking about too. What is, because I mean, I did a video recently on the ins and outs of DRAGONX. So we won't go over the basics so much of that. Guys, if you want to watch that video, it's on my channel. It's like 2 videos ago. Go check that out. It shows you all the basics of that. That'll get you up to speed there. But we're going to go in a little deeper today in this stream. So with DRAGONX, and like I was saying, with TitanX, it needs ETH. The ETH powers the system. So what are either you building, or what needs to come in order to generate that ETH to power the system? Like, what's it going to take or is it possible that DRAGONX and TitanX really could just run so dry that the potential force and power that DRAGONX could have just has nothing to give because the system itself dries up?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think this is probably one of the most persistent types of FUD we have in the community, which is basically the heat death argument.
Right. And to be clear, just before you get started, this is a genuine, like, I think this is a cool conversation in general. This is not like, I don't think it's a problem. I think this is just a cool conversation. So I'm not coming at it, if anyone's listening to this from a concern point of view, more of just, it's just curiosity.
Of course. Yeah. No, I think it's definitely a good point. So with TitanX, you have to understand that we have this buy and burn backing us up. And that's something that's so unique with TitanX, right? As the number of miners decrease, the amount of future inflation is also decreasing, right? So the ability for that buy and burn to bring the price back up to a level that makes it interesting to start mining again, it basically increases, because it's going to have to burn less TitanX later. So, and with all of these different protocols launching, they're going to be making it even easier for the buy and burn to basically support that price. What you're looking for is for overall an increased ROI in miners, right? An increased ROI in miners is going to bring people back into mine. And if you look at the chart, what you've seen is that the biggest mining days are also often the biggest price days. The day is when the price is moving up the highest, or when it's reaching the highest points. So it looks like things are being validated in the sense that whenever we have a price move, you do see that in the miner behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and because these sellers are now capitulating and they're emptying their bags, they don't have the ability to hurt the price later when the Ethereum price is higher, right? So they're giving up their ability to hurt the price while the Ethereum price is going up, and these other protocols are also siphoning off coins. So, and if you look at the sentiment in the community, it's getting worse, but it's not anywhere near like abandonment, right? Like, I've seen projects that actually reach the abandonment stage, and we're absolutely nowhere near that. It wouldn't make any sense. There's too much coming in TitanX. I think there's a lot of people who are still keyed in, and I don't think we've really lost a lot of community members.
No, I really don't think so either. I mean, like, I can bring up the stats and we can go through that. But just even to comment on what you just said, like, that's what I talked about, I think, in my last video too, is that, being at this level and having the buy and burn, sit and do nothing, forces people to make decisions that either get them in or out completely for the next ride up. And those who are going to be in are going to ride probably the whole way up to wherever the next maybe leg is, at least, maybe, because not everyone's, when I say not everyone, I might be in that group. Not everyone's built for a 10,000X. I don't know what that's like. And I don't know what that journey is like. And so, maybe some people sell the first leg, the second leg, if we really, really, really run. But like you were saying too, this inflation it's crazy when you look at the math, which I'm sure many of you have come to see. When Titan X hits about April, there's it's like a 45% decrease in the possible Titan X per max miner possible. So the longer we stay low and the longer ROI is in negative for the shorter term miners, the more this inflation period, which is actually kind of, the more I'm thinking about it, the original design of Titan X was, and Jake talked about this too, the T rank was not anticipated to be so impactful for the amount of adoption that it got, because the amount of adoption that Titan X got originally was not anticipated. So what's kind of cool is the system is almost acting like a reflexive system where, because the inflation was so high in the beginning, now no one can get that inflation anymore. And it's almost as if in the long term, I bet you if we look back, it'll almost be as if that inflation was totally the same as it should have been had the T rank acted normal per the adoption, because we're too high in the beginning and now there's nothing happening now. So it'll equate to this nice flat medium over time. But it's important to understand that, and to understand that the lower that these prices stay too, like you were saying, the buy and burn can really work its magic. And I think that's something that people need to understand, because there's actually a lot of people that I've seen, they're talking to me about 60 minutes and 3 points, it's not doing anything. And it's like, there's games, man. There's games under the surface, and there's strategy, and there's long-term health and longevity in this. And I think the more you take a step back, and I would even say, if you try to position yourself as a founder and you try to think of, okay, I've made Titan X, I want this thing to be as successful as possible. This is what would I do? And I think you'll find yourself, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, exactly what Jake is, or whoever I should say, is running behind the scenes with the buy and burn.
Yeah, I think you hit on a ton of interesting points there. In terms of behind the scenes stuff, all I can say is if you're selling now, you're really the game. You're the one that the game is being played around. I'm in a lot of private chats with builders, and this is not the time to sell. That there is so much good stuff coming, so much good stuff, and the game is being played around those who are they have such weak hands, right? Why should the buy and burn be there like a welfare to hold up the price at irrational levels so that these people can exit? Because I think ultimately a lot of these people are going to exit anyway, right? At least in this first period. And it's not necessarily, I don't believe in bashing sellers. It's people's money and they should be able to sell it. That's fine. But for the long-term sustainability of the project, those two sets of interests are going to diverge, right? And so people shouldn't be mad when the interests of the long-term interests of the project collide with their desire for short-term profit. And it's not to say that having short-term profit is bad at all, but I think a lot of the FUD and dissatisfaction comes from basically those two interests not being aligned.
Right. And it was hard too, because usually people are selling, especially this early in a project, when they're not happy with either two things. Either they've made enough profits and they weren't really, in it for the long haul anyways, where they're like, all right, cool. Yep. Or they are fully just in panic or fear mode, and they're like, man, this thing's dead, and they're out. So right. It sucks because you kind of have to love them in a sense, because they're the reason why you get to go up later. Because when the people who sell finally sell, then it's like cutting off the fat that's making you unable to fully fly. So there is, yeah, I agree. Having judgment or kind of being negative on sellers, you got to thank them, because those are people that would have held you down. They were going to sell at some point anyways, before you. So yeah.
And that's one thing about Titan X. I think for people that were in Hex, they might have the priors of the dump forever, right? Because people, when they stake Hex, they get Hex, which they can then dump. But I don't think people realize this can't go on forever, right? Because when you stake, you get Ethereum. So you're not getting that Titan X back. So it's very interesting to see how this will play out, and I think people are probably overestimating the severity, or maybe not the severity, but the length of the dumping. Like how
Mm.
long can sellers actually continue this? And as you said, the inflation is declining rapidly. We're already past the highest days of inflation. The worst is over. So I think people are going to be quite shocked, and the recovery will be probably more rapid than people expect, is what I would think. Just given the fact
Mhm.
that these sellers, when they sell, they are out. You know.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, why do you think it's going to be as rapid as it is? Is it because of the protocols, or is it the quality of the protocols coming, or is like what exactly is going to be the thing that you think is going to send this thing rapidly faster up than it went down?
Yep. I think it's a combination of things, but yeah, you touched on some of them. The quality of the products that are coming out. I think that the also people are underestimating, and I was mentioning this in chat. People are underestimating the effect of all the projects being launched together because they have reinforcing effects on each other, right? Like for example, if Titanx Market creates a platform that lets people basically have like tradable miners, then that will increase the amount of mining, and that increases the buy and burn for DRAGONX, right? And for the V1 and V2. And if people
Right.
are going into other protocols and they're not staking, then DRAGONX gets more of the share pool, which allows for more buy and burn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just it's a once these are all launched, it's going to be much more difficult, I think, to push Titanx down. Right now, we're almost in like a big payday moment. Were you around in Hex for big payday?
Wasn't around, but I'm very aware of it.
Yeah, it was like this moment where everyone lost faith, right? Because the OA was supposed to never interact, right? It was supposed to be this neutral party. And then it came in and it started to make moves that basically impacted the game theory of Hex. And so even though everything was still sound, and it's actually quite interesting because it was improving the system, but it was it was the faith, it was the belief in certain aspects of the system that actually caused the dump, right?
Right.
So people were actually selling at the worst possible time because the OA was basically demonstrating that it was there to guard the Hex price, right? But people weren't prepared for that, and they dumped massively. Big whales were just emptying up because they thought, oh well, the protocol is somehow corrupt. Um, and so what they did was they basically sold at the worst possible time, and then the rest is history, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think there is a bit of that happening right now in Titanx, where you have Genesis doing certain things people are unhappy with. You have DRAGONX coming in, changing the staking game, right? So people had this original idea of the parameters of Titanx, but as Titanx is growing and evolving, those parameters are changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's funny is that that's causing sell pressure and FUD, but it's actually a sign that the platform is robust and that it has a bright future because it has people building on it. And it has development occurring, right? So it's very interesting to see people basically they're selling on bullish information. Like another example of this is Titanx Market delaying their launch, which I think may have catalyzed some of the dump that we're seeing now. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, that delay kind of made people a little bit concerned. Oh, these projects can't deliver. These projects can't execute. But I know for a fact that they were just taking extra precautions to secure the platform. So that's actually something bullish, right? It means that the people that are launching platforms are so concerned about the security of the platform that they're willing to delay their own launch and to fight the momentum of a launch date, which shows
Wow.
it shows a very high caliber of a team, right? That they're willing to do that. So that's actually something bullish. But the market met that with negative sentiment. So it's very
Totally.
interesting that the human psychology around some of these events.
It is. And I know I can't remember who I was talking about this with, but like there is really just so much coming out right now that I mean, I don't know. I was not in Zen. I was not in um, that ecosystem at all. I don't know how fast things came out. But I'm seeing the performance of that ecosystem. And I mean, I'm not really here to comment on it, but we're talking two different leagues here with Titanx, it seems to me. And all these things
Yeah,
that are going on, like these delays, like you said, with Genesis, um, DRAGONX coming in. I mean, it's so interesting how people can get, or I mean, we all can get like very tunnel visioned on a short term thing that we want and neglect the bigger picture when all we have to do is just pick our head up and take like a half a look around and be like, whoa, okay, there's something happening here. And I think, when for anyone listening, if you are listening to this and you're thinking, okay, well, I am the guy that's not really happy with everything is now, and I'm where everything is now, and
Right.
I'm like thinking about selling, like really consider everything. Take more time. Like, don't if you're thinking about selling right now, fair enough. It's your circumstances lead you to make the decisions that are best for you. But if you got to make sure you're doing anything for the right reasons here, and I think I would love for you to comment on the importance of DRAGONX, because there's a Telegram rant or two that
Yeah,
I had
the other day.
heard floating around, that I loved, and I think especially this is a good time, I think, to go off about that because there's so many people that are not exactly happy with DRAGONX, and the fact that their stakes got diluted, or they think the staking pool is now just useless, or that DRAGONX is even hurting TitanX as a whole. And so to talk on the quality of protocols, I think there's a misunderstanding on a lot of fronts on what quality looks like, and I would love for you to go in and explain like how high quality DRAGONX is for TitanX, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of aspects to quality, right? There's code quality, there's execution on marketing, like we're having a discussion right now, and then there's like the game theory behind it and how it impacts TitanX. And I think that as the founder of DRAGONX, I firmly believe that we are the optimal protocol to build on top of TitanX. We've hit at the perfect lever for the platform. For DRAGONX. That basically creates like what I consider to be one of the best assets you could create when building on top of TitanX. And that's from a game theory perspective, right? And I've talked about the game theory on some other streams, but basically you have a situation where you're now taking the Ethereum that would otherwise be sold or taken into other protocols, and you're keeping that in the system. And you're using that to hold up the TitanX price, which increases miner ROI, which brings in more miners, which then feeds DRAGONX more, and just continues to burn TitanX in the process. So I think that the tokenomics are great. One of the things in that rant that I was going on about is how valuable simplicity is. And it's overrated. I think people are often seduced by complexity, right? They're looking at some shiny new platform and they're thinking, look at all these knobs that I can turn, right? And one of the things I said is that you're not here to turn knobs, right? You're here to make money. You're here to change your life. You're here to make money in crypto and not to turn knobs. So, and what are you getting with all of that extra complexity? You're getting risk. You're getting contract risk. And that's a big problem, right? Are you there, man? I can't tell if you're there or if you're gone. Did we lose him? I love these comments. Unseducible. Here, let me message him on Telegram. It's either me or
Guys, I definitely have some internet issues right now. Am I clear?
yeah.
I apologize about that. I was a little concerned that this
No,
might happen. How am I doing now?
you're good. I can hear you now.
Okay. Sweet.
Actually, yeah, you're a bit grainy, but I can hear you.
Okay. I'm really hoping that my internet holds up. I apologize. This is why I haven't been streaming or doing a whole lot this month, is because I was really concerned about the quality of the stream. So if this happens again, I'll try to manage it. But sorry.
Are you surfing? Are you out somewhere surfing?
No, I'm just I'm too far from good service for what I need right now. Unfortunately. But okay, sorry. So I won't get you to repeat for the audience. But could you give me the 2-second cliff notes so I can just get up to speed on what I missed?
Yeah, I'm actually not sure where I lost you, but what I was saying is basically like simplicity and having a protocol that functions today is extremely valuable, and that's what I was trying to tell the guys in the group. Like, if you're holding your liquid for another protocol, you should think about just going into DRAGONX. And I'm saying that I know I'm the founder, so yeah, ha ha ha. But like, here is why you might go into DRAGONX, right? It's because we are running today. We're running flawlessly today. And that's extremely valuable because it's your money, right? You're not here to play games with crypto, and you're not here to turn knobs. You're here to win the TitanX game, right? And DRAGONX, in my opinion, is the token that is basically optimizing that game. The thing about exposing yourself to all the different platforms, you don't really gain any diversification from that. All you gain is contract risk, right? Because basically all these protocols are going to float up with the price of TitanX to one degree or another, right? Based on their tokenomics. So you're making a gamble on the contract risk of different platforms. Whereas with DRAGONX, we don't even need anyone else to mint DRAGONX.
It actually helps DRAGONX more.
Exactly. There'll be less supply.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
if I had Liquid now, I would go into DRAGONX. I think a lot of OGs have done that because they recognize that, first of all, they recognize that they have more supply coming later, but they also recognize that having something that works today, that's secure, having something with the game theory that may very well be the optimal game theory that you can possibly build on TitanX today, running flawlessly with a public founder, audited to tears, basically, is something that is really, really valuable. And I think there's a lot of people acting with emotion in crypto, obviously, right? We talked about the dumping, right? That's emotionally driven because what they're selling is a bullish event. They're selling bullish events. What does that tell you? It tells you that people are acting with emotion. They're vindictive. They see something they don't like that irks them, and they sell into that. They use their wallet to speak. I don't think that's a good way of investing, right? And so using your wallet as a way to experiment or to kind of like try to diversify and play different games on top of TitanX, I don't know if that's necessarily the best idea from an investment perspective. That being said, I think that these other, I don't want to take this as something where I'm bashing other protocols or that I think they're insecure, because I've seen the conversations that have been happening, and like these guys they're really putting security first, from what I can see, and I think they're beneficial to the community, and I think it's great if there are other TitanX communities that are not DRAGONX community, because it does help the whole protocol, and it also helps DRAGONX, as we've talked about. So it's not about bashing the other communities or saying that they're. I'm just saying that in general, if you're going to spread your money across a bunch of different protocols, you're exposing yourself to contract risk. The same way that if you went into DRAGONX, you're exposing yourself to more contract risk than just holding TitanX, right? The same can be said for DRAGONX. So it's actually a fairly objective statement what I'm saying. The more places you have your money, the more places that could be hacked, the more risk you're taking.
100%. I think that's something to talk about too, is just how concerned you should be about where you're putting your money, because for two reasons. Right. One, you only get you only have had really one shot so far at getting the most amount of TitanX you could for your money, in the beginning. Like, we're basically 45% down. So that's such a good point to even before we get to the contract risk, is that you are risking TitanX that you may never be able to get back. Because right now it's going to cost over double the amount of economic energy. It's probably 2.5 the amount of 2.5x to get the same amount of Titan you could have got originally, or more, I think, at this point. And if you're now placing it into things that, you're increasing your contract risk, or they're not security focused, or they're super complex and they're not necessarily done properly, you've got two layers of risk. Now, you're risking giving up the TitanX that you've worked so hard to get and that you may never get back. And you're also risking it to just be gone instantly. And with something that is secure, like DRAGONX, in terms of, we know it's been audited twice, and second audit, they didn't find anything, right? So we know it's squeaky clean. And knowing that DRAGONX also could possibly be built on, and maybe it is, that is a whole nother line of thinking in the future. And I mean, with something as powerful, I mean, the one thing to think about, this is the way I like to think about it too, is, when it comes to DRAGONX versus something else, it's like DRAGONX has created a token where on its own, it's great. It's a system that was designed to push itself and the thing that is based off of up over time, right? And it also gets better if someone else decides to build on it. If
Right.
it gets adapted, if it gets worked with, versus some of the other protocols that may come out. And this isn't slamming anyone. This is just seeing what's here right now, versus the others, anything else that is currently being built. And just the way maybe people should be looking at this is like, okay, well, DRAGONX is already built. It's got stuff that can be built on, and it's going to cause this to be incredibly valuable. But what are the other protocols going to do? And where the contract risk there? And I think that's such a valuable way of looking at that, because this and maybe a few other cryptos in the space have the potential to do really, really, really well. And if you blow that shot, I mean, that's going to be heartbreaking, and I don't want anyone that's in this ecosystem, or, I mean, watching this channel, regardless of what you're holding, to go through something like that. So what, I guess on that note, to talk about like the future and what's, I guess, a reason why, because buying and holding is boring, right? Buying and holding is super lame until the price goes way up. So
right. That's the fun part.
Exactly. Then it gets fun, right? But then, and I mean, I guess it's funny because I'm thinking about this right now. It's like, okay, I understand why buying and holding is the hardest thing in the world to do. It's obvious reasons, but like when you're not doing anything, it's easy to feel everything. But when you're moving and you're engaged with things and you're active in something, you can only feel based on your activity level, and you're more in tune with what you're doing rather than what's around you, what's happening in front of you. And so, of course, it's going to be easy when there's lots going on, lots to engage with, to feel like, it's easy to hold,
Yep.
But
yep. Good.
some of the highest or the highest performing assets ever are ones that you can't click buttons with. You can't do anything except for hold. And I think that alone should tell you about the value and simplicity, as you were saying. And so, to piggyback off of that, what exactly would make DRAGONX go from a HODL token to something that is like mind-blowing, like, oh my God, here we go.
Like something built. Well, I can tell you that there's at least 3 protocols building on DRAGONX right now.
3 of them.
Yes, and the public one, and some of these are awesome. I mean, I'm a big fan of Baby DRAGONX. Huge fan.
I saw that one.
Baby?
I saw about it. I haven't done my due diligence on it yet, but I read the white paper.
Yeah, what I love about Baby DRAGONX, and I'm consulting on the tokenomics of that.
Cool.
Just to be clear, like I'm not a founder. The founding team is awesome. They're amazing. Like, it's their idea, but I was just helping them improve the tokenomics to get it more tightly integrated into DRAGONX.
Nice.
So basically, like, the way that works is that people, when they mint Baby DRAGONX, they actually mint DRAGONX from the vault. So they're coming with TitanX. They're minting DRAGONX in the vault. They get the Baby DRAGONX. The DRAGONX that they mint goes into a buy and burn for Baby DRAGONX. So there's a buy and burn backing up the meme coin, right? Which is really cool.
It's unique.
And then the primary pair is DRAGONX Baby Dragon. It's not Baby DRAGONX and TitanX. So this meme coin basically gets all of the price, or not all, but it gets the price association with DRAGONX, right? And it's a much shorter launch phase. It's like going to be maybe 2 weeks. So, did we lose him again? Oh no, there you are. Can you hear me?
I think so. Yeah, I'm hoping okay. This stays. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
No, you're good.
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah, I can hear. Yeah, so basically I was saying, like, it's a really fun take on DRAGONX. I'm excited about it. They're doing a great job marketing it. Like, these guys are really good. They're professionals, and it's great to see them building. So it's just a fun project. Like, it's a cute memes. I think they have a whole roadmap plan for that. So you can play with your Baby DRAGONX on whatever else they build in the future. So it's looking pretty good there. A couple of other really cool protocols that are not quite ready to come public, but I'm very excited about those. And we have DRAGONX Hybrid as well. So if you guys want to play around a little bit with DRAGONX, we have Hybrid now. I think over 100 NFTs have been minted. And it's very interesting to see. No one has minted an Emperor yet, as far as I know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just too expensive. It's like already 6 figures to mint an Emperor.
Right.
So
yeah.
somebody minted these things at one point.
Yeah, like 88. It's like right around 88 grand at the moment, I think, US, which is a good
Yeah.
chunk of change for a single. So that's crazy. So the Emperor, if someone gets one of those, that's gonna be real rare. So
Yep.
talk to me about the hybrid then, because why would someone mint one of these NFTs for a fee when they can just hold? I'm very curious about this.
Yep. So basically, the value of the NFT is that it allows for an OTC trading of DragonX, and it allows you to exit DragonX via Ethereum on a platform like OpenSea. So you don't need to hit the DragonX price. So you can do OTC. You get a way of trading without slippage, right?
Mhm.
And those are valuable to people that have a lot of DragonX. So it could be worth the mint fee, basically the fee of generating it. The fee is pretty nominal for the lower tier NFTs.
Mhm.
And what that fee will also do is probably raise the price a little bit above what you would get for holding liquid, because people are not likely to. I mean, we know how irrational the economics are around crypto. Like, people do very irrational things, but all else being the same, there should be a slight premium because people are paying a slight premium to create these. And
Right.
as DragonX becomes more scarce, right, you're also paying a premium to get in now before DragonX gets more and more scarce, right? Because when it gets more scarce, it gets more difficult to generate these NFTs.
Right. And is there
Yeah.
an NFT platform specifically that, I mean, well, there's OpenSea, but is there, I guess, yeah, there's OpenSea and whatever else is going to be on Ethereum. That's going to be the main place going to host these, correct?
Yep.
Right.
I
Okay.
believe most people are putting them on OpenSea right now. But
Cool.
I mean, it would be cool if there was like a Titan, because there's quite a few NFTs in Titan X right now, right? A couple different NFTs. There's Titan Legends, there's
Battle.
us,
Uh,
and
yeah,
Titan
there's,
Wars is going to have a bunch of NFTs. I think those
yep.
are so, like, it would be cool if there was just an NFT platform for Titan X stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of almost expecting that at this point. You know, I'm just kind of expecting a DEX to pop up, a NFT platform to pop up at some point. But
Yep.
there's a comment here that I wanted to ask about, and because originally I had heard that you had inspiration for this came from Bozo, right?
Correct.
And so I've seen this kind of floating around where this isn't really Bozo related. It's just a regular NFT. And I wanted to get your thoughts on, I guess the grassroots of, what this is versus the inspiration, and, what thoughts like this have in terms of actual relevance, or if they're just incorrect, or if this is something different. Like, I just love to get your thoughts on, or yeah, your take on all this.
Yeah, it's Bozo inspired. And the thing about Bozo is, I think they have a limited number of NFTs.
Right.
Whereas we don't have a limited number of NFTs. The limitation on the NFTs, which leads to the floor price rising, is the fact that DragonX becomes more scarce over time. Right. So it's
Right.
our take on the same deflationary mechanic, because the Bozo hybrid NFTs are harder and harder to create as the Bozo price goes up. Right. So the value of the NFT goes up, and people rush to take the Bozo and create new NFTs, which creates this virtuous cycle. Right. But we have a
Right.
similar virtuous cycle in play here, which is the inspiration from Bozo, except these do not have a limited run. Instead, what you have is a limited token, a deflationary token, which is being reduced over time once the mint phase is over. So it's
Right. Right. Well, and I think that alone is super
NFT as well.
powerful.
Yep. It's not just an ordinary NFT as well, because it does hold it holds the access to the underlying DragonX, right? Whereas, like, a Bored Apes picture doesn't have a redeemability for a token. Maybe it does now. I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. At the time, or there are other pieces of artwork that are purely artwork, right? Whereas this actually represents your DragonX in a different form,
Totally.
and that's what makes it like Bozo hybrid. The reason it's hybrid is because you have a liquid token, and you also have a token that's instantiated in NFTs.
Total. And I think what the cool thing is too here is in, like you're saying, typically and in the past, NFTs just were like art, gambling on art, for the most part.
Mhm.
And what was really cool was to see how what you've done here is kind of evolved. And this reminds me of like a Watsa. If you guys aren't familiar with Icosa, a Watsa is the We Are All the source address NFT, and it was the first NFT that I had seen where it was backed by tokens that you were earning on a daily basis and increasing in value. And this is cool because it's kind of the exact same thing in a way as a WATSA, but it's got a slight change in the way that it increases in value. So with a WATSA, you're always increasing in your ICOSA that's backing it, but which causes the value to go up. This is the exact same thing, but instead of having the tokens go up that you're going to be backing, increasing the supply, what you're going to get is an NFT that's going to be worth X amount of tokens, and that token is going to become more and more difficult over time. So the value it's basically a version 2.0 of a WATSA NFT, or in its own sense. It's different, but it's cool because you've taken something that was in its own right, creating value in NFT, and you've gone a different way with it, but it's also doing the same thing. And I think that's really cool. And if this works out in the way that it could, in the way that maybe we thought the WATSA NFTs were, and maybe still will work in the future when V2 for ICOSA and Hedron comes out, that this could be quite the powerful, these NFTs could be worth quite a lot in the future. Quite a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, obviously we don't know the future, right? It's all speculation. Not financial advice, but it will be, I think what's going to happen is people are going to sleep on these NFTs. And then once the market turns, they're going to see the value of these NFTs going crazy, potentially, obviously, nobody knows. But if the value of these NFTs do go crazy, then people will start to wake up to them and they will be minting more of them. But it's one of those things where, price down, I don't want to engage, but the engagement will return. And I think the people who are minting now might be making a smart choice. I mean, as long as they pay the fee, they get their DRAGONX back, right? So it's not a destructive process for the supply of the token that they've already got on their hands.
Right. So you're saying there's a mint fee to make the NFT, and there's a mint fee to get the DRAGONX from the NFT.
Yeah, there's a fee. You have to burn a little bit of DRAGONX to basically get the DRAGONX back.
Let's just go through this real quick, because I guess I haven't talked about this on the channel yet. So we don't need to go through the whole white paper, but I just want to bring up the actual. So the mint fee of 88 million and a burn fee of 88 million for the Emperor. Okay, I see. So it's basically what you put in is the fee to go into this is the same. Sorry, I'll share this tab instead. So the fee that you're using to create the NFT is the same quantity of DRAGONX, and TitanX is the same quantity of DRAGONX that you need to pay to basically. And does this come out of the NFT, or does this come out of your pocket to do it?
This comes out of the NFT.
Okay, sweet. So you don't have to just basically put up more money to do it. If you're dead broke and this is all you got, you don't have to find a way to get more money.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. That's really cool. I like this concept, and you are clearly someone who really wants to expand and evolve and continue to build. And I think that is pretty damn cool. And what we talked about before we got on here was that it doesn't sound like this is the end for DRAGONX. It doesn't sound like, you are like, oh yeah, okay, we got DRAGONX, we got hybrid, done. Time to just be a public face and kind of sit and relax and watch this thing go. It doesn't sound like you're doing that at all.
Nope. No, actually, I was thinking about this today, and you bring up a great point. I love that we're hitting on all these different points in different live streams. Like it's awesome. I was just thinking about how we are operating at a fraction of our potential as a team right now, and myself as well. Our team is so good, and things are coming together very well for us. And no, we are not going anywhere. Not only are we not going anywhere, but we're just getting started. Like DRAGONX is just the tip of the spear. It's the first kind of thing we've built with my public face. But this is absolutely just the beginning. We have so much planned. Just our TitanX roadmap it's pretty insane. We have our DRAGONX on top of Hyper, which we can talk a little bit about. Some tweaks to that. Yeah, we got and we're going to be building a few other protocols as well. We have our super secret project with Jake that I can't tell you about yet. The time's not right for that, but I'm really looking forward to. Hopefully we can get back on stream and go through that when it comes out.
We'll absolutely love to.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. So yeah, we have half a dozen projects, basically, that we're working on at any one time at this point, because we feel like we're really in the zone right now. So yeah, I think it's going to be really good. I have projects that are outside of TitanX completely. I have big ambitions this year. So I have multiple projects that I have planned that are basically outside of the scope of TitanX completely. And I'm hoping to be more public as well. And yeah, so this is just the beginning, man. You're absolutely right. And we can talk about the hyper, the changes we're going to do for DRAGONX on hyper if you want. Some small tweaks.
I would love to hear about, because I mean, I'm sure there's understanding behind the scenes for those who are maybe a little more connected and of maybe what hyper is going to be. The rough understanding that I have right now is probably not quite it anymore. I mean, I think there's been some serious changes going on. So what can you tell us about first, like, why would you build, what makes you want to build on hyper? Like what can you say about hyper that makes you want to build another version of DRAGONX for hyper? Is it just as simple as because hyper is going to be similar aspects to TitanX, but built on TitanX, you're going to create a token for basically DRAGONX 2.0 for hyper? Or is there something else kind of behind the scenes that you're thinking of?
No, I think that's it. I think it's basically DRAGONX 2.0 with tweaked mechanics. And I mean, so just to be clear, like, I actually don't know a lot beyond what Jake has already said about hyper. I don't actually know the changes that he's made. He's in super stealth mode. He hasn't really disclosed it to anybody. Mm-hmm. From what I understand, there are going to be some significant and very powerful changes, but I don't know any more than you on that.
Right.
So I'm operating under the assumption as well that this will be that DRAGONX on top of hyper will be a something compatible that can be done. Mm-hmm. That is something of an assumption. I think we did learn a few things with DRAGONX. So I think we can make this something really powerful as well. We're probably going to call it Hydra. Ooh. So that's going to be the name right now. Yeah. It's going to be I think we're going to do a much shorter launch phase. Much shorter. I want the FOMO this time. Like, DRAGONX has a very specific purpose, which is to just hoover up so much TitanX. Right, we've already got 40% of the staking pool, and we're only 1 month in. We've got 40% of the entire staking pool. So DRAGONX is kind of there to just hoover up as much TitanX as possible. I like the idea of doing something shorter with Hydra, something more urgent, And I think we're probably gonna. So where the rewards go for hyper will probably be a little bit different. It could be interesting to have hyper feed into the DRAGONX vault. In terms of the rewards that it might get. Obviously, the whole power of it is that it can feed. It basically compounds on top of hyper, so that has to be preserved. But the actual percentages of how it will compound are still under debate. And we're definitely going to be lowering the fees. We're probably giving up too many rewards right now in DRAGONX. So the fees will be cut significantly, and that will be basically used to burn hyper instead. So that's a few things about that. Right. It is a largely, similar platform for sure.
That's interesting to think about how you can make those two work together. I mean, I would love to spend some time thinking about that. That's I think you got some cool stuff that you can do there. I'd love to see when you have more information about it, obviously, and when obviously hyper is out and we can actually know for sure, what you're going to be doing and have all the mechanics. I think that's going to be wild, because if you're able to use Hydra, which you're going to obviously have, sounds like a short phase, which is going to have, like, you get in or you miss it, essentially. Like, you're either in, like Red Leaf was saying, basically like 15-minute mint time, it's going to feel like, and then it's gone. That is going to, and if you can lever that back into dude, yeah, and you've basically got, like, I can imagine in my head there's a system somehow where there's basically a lever under a lever, and it's kind of like in a square or a circle, and they're all levering each other up, and nothing's falling. And it's not like it's built on a house of cards, but it's just, I could see how powerful that would be. And so when Hyper comes out, do you expect Hydra to be something that takes time, like a month or two to develop when it comes out, or is it something that you really just need to know the base mechanics of, let's say, like if there's mining and staking and how that all works to build Hydra, or what really would go into developing that on a timeline or in a timeline front?
I think most of the development is already done with DRAGONX. We
Right,
want to only diverge from the audited code when absolutely necessary to improve the value of the platform.
right.
So the minimum changes to make this more powerful and to make it suit Hyper is kind of what we would do. And that's not to say that, I mean, what's interesting to me is basically that we're getting Titan X rewards and not Ethereum rewards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that has a lot of implications, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the game theory, the actual operation of this machine needs to change very much. It just means that where will that Titan X end up? Because we want to preserve the code that's been audited, so that the next audit is fast and clean, and that we know that the product is secure. So it should be a really fast. I mean, the contracts will probably not even be one day. I would say probably because it will be basically, and obviously we have an incredible dev who's helping out, and the front end will be similar. Might be interesting to add a few things statistics wise, but the fundamental operation will be the same. So I don't see it to be a big development effort whatsoever. I think like the initial invention is out there. People are kind of understanding what they get into, so it can be a shorter launch phase and it can be a very fast auditing process. So yeah, I would say maybe a week after Hyper launches or something, which is actually interesting because that improves the game theory around Hydra, right? Because DRAGONX didn't start until what, day 84 or day 90 or something. It was pretty far along. So you're going to be able to get in earlier. Our platform will be able to get in earlier into the staking pools,
which is actually really cool because that's gonna change the dynamic. That alone, from a design perspective, is completely different because you have a system where, like when Titan X first came out, the only thing you could do with Titan X was stake it or sell it or hold it. I guess you had three options, right? You'd hold, stake, sell. What happens though if you change the name and you give people, because in the beginning, people FOMO'd in. That's why you saw that big, huge those 2 or 3 candles, right, up on Titan X right away. But what happens if you have a second reason for people to buy? And that even has more urgency because the staking pool is always going to be around. But what if DRAGONX was there in the beginning of Titan X and you had even more reason to buy, and the people that were then minting, or mining, I should say, and then minting had reason to get in and use that inflation into DRAGONX instead of compounding, which was, great for the system, but not good for the price. You take that economic energy and you put it somewhere where it's going to then push the rest of the system up. I mean, I could see the timing of that being ludicrously good for this entire ecosystem by having something that rare and valuable available right away. And to go back to what we were talking about way earlier, with this effective compounding protocols, if you add that in there as well, you'll have the hype of Hyper, which everyone's waiting for. You'll have whatever other protocols are already coming out and people are buzzing about. And then you'll have Hydra being on top of Hyper. That's going to basically cause people to be like, oh man, I got to make moves. And that's I think going to be, like you were alluding to, that's a whole nother level of powerful.
100%. I think you're making a great point here. The actual ability for Hydra to affect Hyper in a positive way is even more than what DRAGONX has probably done for Titan X, right? Because of how early it is. Exactly, they're going to be so complementary from such an early stage that the game theory is going to be bananas, right? Because people won't be selling, they'll be putting it into Hydra, so that will be pushing up the miner ROI on Hyper, right? And it will be a monster. It's going to be an absolute monster.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Having those two together like that in the early stages could be massive.
I mean, even if 50%, like let's say we got a complete repeat of Titan X where the shorter term miners were able to be compounded. With something like Hydra, like if there was an opportunity to place your Titan X somewhere to leverage the value, I mean, think of it like this, right? When you commit to something completely, you're completely risking and trusting that that option is going to work out. But if you can take your economic energy and split it into two highly potentially profitable and safe, plays, you're cutting your risk, because if one of them goes down and one of them goes up, you're neutral. If one of them stays the same and the other one goes way up, you're perfect. But if you only go in one or the other, and one of them goes up, one of them goes down, you got to hope you're not in the one that went down. So I think from like a risk perspective, that also allows some really cool opportunities that will split the economic energy that could be selling down the price of Hyper and Titan in the long run, because you're basically forcing people to make a smart choice, which is going to take away from the possible sell pressure in the short term and hopefully long term as well.
Exactly. Yeah, you're basically you're alleviating a lot of the sell pressure that would otherwise exist, because that the derivative is like an escape valve, for all that sell pressure. People will go into that, and then that just allows the hyper buy and burn to be even more effective at an earlier stage, which just amplifies the whole system. It's going to be super cool to see.
Oh man, it's exciting.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be wild, because like, this is actually kind of funny timing right now, that you're saying this, Z, because I'll read it. So DRAGONX is great for the eco, but short term has killed adoption of Titan X, as most are now just selling versus staking. Whales would not dilute this fast, and most would still engage in the Titan X. You couldn't have timed this question or this statement more perfectly, because this is the time where you don't want to be making, like, if you go back and you listen to the last 2 minutes of what we just said, you'll understand that there's so much coming in just the two protocols we've mentioned alone, which is Hyper and Hydra. That alone is going to have such a crazy effect on Titan X that this short term, if you can outwait the period here where you just can't do much, and you can make the smart moves when the things that we know for sure are coming actually come out, you're not going to have any thoughts about, should I sell? What do I do? Is this project dead? Like, this is a very temporary period. And I really hope, Z, that I would recommend watching the stream again, listening closely to everything we talked about in terms of the protocols, even the beginning, talking about the same thing we're talking about now. But I really hope that everyone watching this really hears what you had to say, Eric, because you put so many amazing points out about the levers and the power of DRAGONX alone. And if people are building on something like DRAGONX, imagine what happens when people build on Hydra as well, if Hydra and DRAGONX are linked. Like, that's a whole nother level on top of that. I mean, not everyone's going to want to go there, because at some point, some people are going to be like, okay, well, we're stacking up too much here. I got to get my Titan X to go into DRAGONX, to go into Hyper, then to go into Hydra, then to go into, that might not be for everyone, but for the people that are really deeply in this, that is some crazy opportunity. And even more simplistically, that's crazy power for Titan X. Because I mean, when you build all this stuff, I know Jake talked about this originally, but he talked about the Archimedes lever. And I love that concept of, and originally he was talking about it when we were first talking about Hyper and what it was at the time. He talked about, building on top of Hyper and how that can be an Archimedes lever. Did you in any way, shape, or form, like, use that theoretical concept to when thinking about building, or is it something you're using for future stuff, or is it just so happens that you happen to be basically doing that just on your own without really thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just I don't know if I wasn't reaching for that concept specifically, but I think I arrived at the same kind of thinking. Right, like when I was looking to build DRAGONX, I was thinking about what is the highest leverage thing you can build on Titan X, right? Like, given the mechanics of Titan X, what is the most interesting token you can build? And that's how I arrived at DRAGONX. So what is my highest point of leverage? Where can I make the biggest impact on Titan X, right? Like, diverting these millions of dollars into it's been $10 million burned or around there, and $1 million in buy pressure on the chart in 1 month, right? In one of our lowest months. So I think, yeah, we hit on a serious lever here that's really powerful for DRAGONX. But I wasn't particularly thinking about that concept, although I think that I arrived at something similar. And one of the things I'll mention about this comment is, I think people are seeing this big. Now we may have more liquid, right? Because people don't want to stake because of DRAGONX, and that's maybe why we're getting these violent downturns. But as I said before, like staking doesn't get you more DRAGONX. So instead, what you have is you have people who are capitulating, right? They're not staking. That's what you want. I mean, I hate to say it, like, and that's not to say all these people are even selling at a loss, right? Some these people are probably still selling at a profit, a lot of them. So it's fine to say it's okay, right? Because they're basically taking profits. Great for them. Okay, they're taking profits. That means that they can't take profits later, right? When the price is 10x higher. And to a degree, staking is deferred sell pressure, right? You're basically saying we'd rather you lock up now so we get price appreciation now in exchange for potentially damage to the price later.
Mm-hmm.
That's the pact that you have when you have staking in your platform. That's why we don't have staking in DRAGONX, because it's actually a pumpamental to not have staking. It's a deferred pumpamental. You need to wait for people to sell and capitulate, but you get it out of the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we're seeing now is a heavier liquid supply and maybe more price volatility. But I mean, it's also great for other protocols, right? If DRAGONX is pushing out TitanX and keeping it out of staking, keeping it in the market, then that means other protocols are going to benefit. They're going to absorb that TitanX, right? So DRAGONX is doing a favor to those other protocols as well. It's giving them more liquidity to enter into their platforms.
It's actually a really interesting point. I mean, keeping things like it's funny because when you think about on face value, you think about what you just said, and you're like, well, what do you like? Staking defers sell, like we go up quicker. Well, it's funny because it actually almost it makes it so that the people, when the price goes up a little bit or when time goes on, those people that are seeing the price appreciation and they're not really capturing much of it, especially if their stakes are diluted and they're not happy about it, they're probably going to be the first ones to sell when their stakes are done. So, but if you have people that are fixed in liquid supply, you actually you're actually giving more power to the ecosystem potentially with your economic energy, because when you're staked, you can't do anything to benefit the ecosystem. You can benefit yourself, which is totally great. And that's what it's there for, right? There's nothing wrong about that at all. But in terms of overarching concepts that benefit the ecosystem, I think you're right. I think holding liquid gives people the power to benefit themselves and the ecosystem far more. And instead of being a zero-sum game, it's a game of basically unity in a sense, where you have a positive feedback loop. You win and the system wins and everybody wins. So I think that's a really interesting point. Very interesting point.
Yeah. I mean, if whales are selling because they can't stake, is that a whale we want when the price is 10 times higher? Like, they were there for the ETH then. They weren't there for the ecosystem. They weren't there for the long term, right? They probably weren't there for the long term. Mm-hmm. If they were, then if they are, then they're going to keep holding when they're liquid, and maybe they'll go into other plays. Another thing I'll mention is that the participation in DRAGONX is actually not that high. Like, it's maybe 10% of the people who hold TitanX, which it just boggles my mind. Like, it's baffling to me, given how many live streams I've been on and how much, like, even just the FUD, like the amplification of the message through the FUD around DRAGONX has only managed to pull in about 10% of TitanX holders. So what that means is that we're pushing all these people into liquid, but they aren't even going into DRAGONX. So they're going to be there for other platforms, right? I mean, I wish they would go into DRAGONX, but many of them, I think, are just so salty about losing their ETH payouts that they just won't do it. So other platforms are going to benefit from that, right? Mm-hmm. Hyper will benefit from that. The whole ecosystem is going to benefit because there's this massive war chest of people who are just holding liquid until more projects open up. I think that's why we saw potentially capitulation when TitanX market decided to hold back and strengthen their security, is because those people were waiting to do something, right? And when they couldn't do something, they just decided to dump it and give up. So that means that there are actually people that are holding back this dry powder of TitanX.
Right. There's so much. I'm realizing, because we're at the just over an hour mark, and I gotta get going pretty quick here. But I'm realizing how much we could, go off and for hours and hours. I feel like there's so much to discuss, and we can go deeper and deeper. But I do have to get going here. I want to be respectful of your time as well.
Yeah.
What as a closing question, like, what do you want to leave the audience with in terms of something to think about and chew on, during this period where we're going through, where, there might be more news where things come out and things are delayed. This is the nature of what we've seen so far. And there might be a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, in people's minds, which may make them want to sell. What do you want to leave them with over this period to chew on so that they can make the best decisions for themselves possible, given everything we know is coming?
Great question. Fantastic way to end it. I mean, I will say that, first of all, now that you're in Titan X, play the game. Like you're in Titan X, you have your position. Why don't you see how it plays out, right? I'll say that the people who are selling and acting now, they're being a little bit short-sighted. I saw this in Hex. I've been in this industry since 2015 in one way or the other. I've been building for the past couple, what was it? Almost a year. So I've been around. Okay. I've been around. I've seen people mess things like this up before. And you don't want to be one of those people. So why don't you, if you're thinking about selling or you have a liquid bag and you're not sure about holding it, why don't you let it play out and just see what happens? Okay. I mean, if you need to sell or if you want to take profits, go ahead. I'm not a financial advisor. But for those of you who feel like the vision is gone or that, they were in this moment of despair, hold through that, because the same thing happened in Hex after Big Payday. I was there. The FUD was immense. I was actually not immune to the FUD. I was a little bit concerned that the OA was doing stuff, but I didn't sell because I looked to see, okay, Richard is this super smart guy, right? And I had the foresight to get in and trust him before Big Payday. So I'm going to just hold with that thesis and not just pivot my thesis right now. And that worked out really well for me and everyone else who held, right? So my message to people who are thinking about selling is, let's see how this plays out, because if it works as we're hoping it works, this could be a massive play, right? And your downside, your potential upside to selling now is probably a couple of X on what maximum of what you put in. So don't play a small game here. Like, let's see how this plays out. That's what I would say to people.
I think that's great. I think that's wonderful because, I think in your shoes when you're in Hex, it sounds to me like you were deep into the 80% loss zone, probably at one point after Big Payday. I think it was like even 85%. I think at that point, and we could maybe compare it to Titan X in terms of where we've been, but I don't think everyone has been in so far at those prices. So I think those are wise words. And I'm going to clip this for sure because I'm going to get this message out to everyone. But Erik, thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it. It's been great to speak with you. And I'm looking forward to the next stream when we get a little more information about what you're working on next with hopefully Hyper being on the horizon. And just going on with whatever else you're building. Because it sounds like even Hydra and like what you're saying, Hydra's not the end. There's just more and more to come.
100%. I really appreciate your time and hanging out with me today. Thank you.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. And guys in the chat and gals in the chat, thank you guys for being here. I see there's lots of comments. Sorry, I've realized over the past while that it's very difficult to be fully present and to really listen and to have the conversation that I like to have in terms of quality and be in the chat at the same time. So at some point, I may be a little bit more into the chat. But for now, guys, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I suck at that. And I'd rather have a really good stream than not. So thank you all for being here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Erik, where can people get a hold of you or DRAGONX or come to the what socials can people go to find you or DRAGONX?
Yeah, the primary DRAGONX Telegram is a great place to be. That I'll share the links out, and maybe we can pin them here at the bottom of the description. My personal Twitter, I want to get some people following that, and the DRAGONX Twitter is also pretty good. So I'll share those links with you, and people can follow there.
Perfect. So if there's any links that aren't in I think I have some of the, okay. I need to update the the Twitter and basically the links you just talked about. I'll put those in the description below. I missed those. So if you're watching right now, just give it some time and I'll put those in the links below and you can get a hold of either Erik or DRAGONX, the TG, or all that stuff. So Erik, thank you again, man. And guys, have a great rest of your day. If it's Saturday, because you're in Australia or you're on the other side of the world, have a great weekend. And I will chat with you guys again, hopefully very soon in the next one. Peace.
Thank you.